Yo, you did it. You're here. Welcome to the Growers Hangout. I'm Aaron. It's my buddy Pete. It's my other buddy Chris, and we're hanging out. It's Tuesday night. You're here. We're doing it. What's going on?
Got a special guest tonight.
Yeah, favorite day of the week.
Everybody excited. Everybody's beyond excited, right? I know Chad's beyond excited. I know the community's beyond excited. We got Miles from Fermented Plant Extracts with us tonight. And we're gonna bring him on. We're not even gonna like bullshit or nothing. He's got so much knowledge to share. We don't want to waste any time.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, Miles, go. It's all you.
No.
Oh. Pressure's on. Okay, so start with soil, and the soil is not the dirt. And
I mean, fellow soil farmer, Miles from Fermented Plant Extracts. There we go.
Well, good.
That's the way to say it,
right? Yeah. Living soil. I mean, we deal with the earth. You know, might be growing in containers in a tent in a garage, but the techniques and the tenets and the ethics and the responsible methods that we're using are rooted in and have origin in actual farming in the soil, in the earth, outdoors, in fields. So we're taking these kind of techniques that are really big in gardening and farming, and we're kind of mimicking them and translating them into what we do. But the theory of it is always still conducive and translates directly. Yeah. And that theory is just that we're using microbiology in the soil to create nutrition from the soil rather than adding already plant available nutrition directly to the plants and feeding the plants. We're feeding a huge, complex, and diverse ecosystem in the soil that will support our plants. It's about the balance it's about diversity and balance. So even when things technically might become out of balance temporarily, the diversity is going to always kick in. And I like to think of it as like a succession. If one thing gets out of whack and another thing is high or low, ultimately everything is going to like it's just the time. It's just their time to get big, and then their time goes away and the next thing gets big. And as you get older, you watch the world, you start to see these things, and it's like everything has its time, everything has its own time, and nothing lasts forever. So just patience, let it roll.
The wheel turns. Cher sung about it in the 70s.
For everything there's a season.
Yeah, for everything there's a season, man. Just dude, everything's cyclical, and that's life, and that's soil. I mean, if you take care of the soil, the plant can just thrive, do what it wants to do, and that's in the garden, in your medicine cabinet, whatever.
Yes, and it's cool to see too that the soil, like soil growing, is having its season right now. Like 10 years ago, if you talked about living soil or growing in soil or pots of soil indoors, people really look at you funny. And I mean, even a lot of the grow stores, they still bear the name hydro. They're selling more soil than anything, but they'll call themselves the hydro store. Yeah. And it's a jargon that we understand as the community, but outsiders just see hydro and think ganja or think hobbyist, but they're not getting the full picture of like what's going on in the succession of things. Because today, more growers, more grow stores are more capitalizing on living soil and using these techniques, and more commercial operations. When I talk to the grow store owners, they're telling me the only people buying all that chemical fertilizer are commercial operations. All the home growers, for the most part, are on this level we're on right now. So it's our season.
It is our season. Here, there are some agricultural hemp farms that are big into living soil, which is super cool. That is like a whole other side that you would not think that would be into like living soil, and they're super into cover crop, regenerative farming, because like as you farm, like if you're in a farming area, like the soil like becomes loose, and like then you start having problems with like erosion, and like you're losing your biology of the soil. You're losing, like what's good about your medium that you grow food in. And so they're super into it.
And that's super important to us to see people like on the same level as us and who believe in what we believe in. But who are operating at different scales or different industries, different crops, all that. it's really important for us to see each other.
So I've noticed this like this macro trend going on in social media. My wife kind of pointed it out to me because she follows a lot of these homestead type influencers that are teaching farming practices, and they're just, some of them are more advanced, some of them are more beginner, but it's teaching farming, and it's super popular right now because people are concerned about what the future is going to bring. And I think it's just really timely, obviously, that we're all getting into this now, and can kind of lead the way and provide that education to people as they begin to research these things for themselves and look to adopt organic growing and other types of natural farming.
Yes, and I love this. I love this concept because I call it like taking cannabis with us, or like bringing cannabis with us, where like we got here to this knowledge that we're all into right now from cannabis, right? Like ganja brought us to this place of living soil because we wanted to grow the best herb we could. We want to grow it responsibly. We want to make it safe for the patients that are using the medicine we make, so we're not just giving them contaminated product. So ganja taught us all this stuff, and we've been instilled with these things through ganja. But now we take what ganja taught us, and we go out and we go to talk to the hemp farmers, or the veggie farmers, or the cattle ranchers, or the homesteaders, or the survivalists, or the prepper types that are stockpiling their seeds but don't know how to make their own fertilizers. And everywhere we go, or at least me, everywhere I go, I bring ganja with me. It's not like I'm leaving ganja behind and separating from my roots. I literally and physically and symbolically bring ganja with me everywhere I go.
Ganja.
Right. Like we embody this message that ganja has like instilled in us over time through not only use, but cultivation, distribution for some of us, whatever role we've played with this plant, however capacity that we've walked with the plant through our life. That's us taking it. We take it with us everywhere we go now to teach and to share what ganja put in our minds, put in ourselves, what we've embodied through ganja. Now we're sharing it with other people, but it don't have to be about ganja. We can share everything we got to share without ever mentioning cannabis, but it's still there. It's always going to be in the pocket or in the head or with us somewhere. So give thanks for the plant, for bringing us together and propelling us. We're alive in this time of ganja, like where it's a really exciting time for cannabis, to be able to branch out and to propel outward from it. Because 10, 20, 50, 30 years ago, you couldn't. You had to. It was a insular thing where you had to keep your head down and not fucking branch out, not share what you learned. So give thanks that we have this access and this sharing, and that we're all together right now doing it. Like, more thanks, more love, more life.
Oh, yeah.
Great point. What are you smoking on, Miles?
Yeah, what are you smoking on?
I'm smoking on the Black Maple 22 from it is a little bit cheesy. It's also got that fruity funk, but it's from Bloom. Big cut going around right now. I think this same cut just won the Dude Grows Cup out here. So I'm always testing my seeds, but I'm also always looking into other people's stuff and seeing what the kind of industry standard and what other people are considering hype right now is.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole other subject of what other people consider hype.
Right. Yeah.
But that's subjective too.
Right. But you got to know, like, you got to you got to understand where that is coming from and why and all that. So it's exciting. It's nice weed. It's good herb. Big ups to Harry Potter. Or is it? No. What's his name? Big ups to Bloom Seed Company.
Oh yeah. So Miles, I got a question for you. For a lot of the people that are going to be viewing, they may have heard terminology like Jadam and Korean natural farming, but might not know exactly what that entails. And I was wondering if maybe you can give a high level overview of what that entails and the benefits of it.
For sure. Well, I like to call these things kind of like, even though they're ancient, even though Jadam and Korean natural farming are ancient, they're modern interpretations of ancient techniques. and they're very modern. I mean, they've really only been around, like Jadam this is our generation. KNF is like one generation back. But I like to call them the modern incarnation, the most modern version of organics, living soil growing. Whereas like my parents and the growers that came right before us were all into like what I would call traditional organics, which is mostly compost based. Maybe some worm castings, maybe some worm teas, but a lot of compost. And maybe if they got really, really into it, like biodynamics, which is like the closest thing to KNF and Jadam because of the specificity of the instructions for making the preparations and just the concept of having like multiple different garden inputs that you make yourself. So that's kind of at the crux what Jadam and KNF are, is systems for creating your own farming inputs beyond compost, that have specific uses and combinations of uses for different stages of plant growth. KNF is really big on this, what we call nutrioperiodism, which is how you feed your plants based on the stage of growth that they're at. And for ganja growers, we've been doing this forever. Veg and bloom, we've been looking at the feeding charts and saying, oh, week 2, week 3, week 5, week 8, and how the nutrition changes over time. Not all farmers deal with that. Not all growers have that concept instilled in them the way that growing ganja instilled that in us, the nutrioperiodism concept. But KNF specifically really teaches that. They really say, if you're feeding a plant at this stage of life, you give it these nutrition. And if you're feeding a plant at this other stage of life, you give it a different set of nutrition. And it's basically like just you make 6 or 8 inputs and you start recombining them and feeding them at different ratios at different times, based on where your plant is at in its growth cycle. Jadam similarly has those concepts, but Jadam is extremely streamlined. And the cool thing about KNF and Jadam is that it's a family process where KNF was Master Cho, the elder, and his son, Young Sang, created Jadam, where you can literally hear in your head the conversations between father and son, where the son is trying to like poke holes in his dad's process and saying, isn't that complicated? Don't you need a lot of sugar? What if that doesn't work? Doesn't that take a long time? Why is it so complicated? You have to practice it and do it over and over and over till you get good at it. Dad, couldn't we just do it all stinky and put it in a barrel, and just wouldn't it work that way? And Dad's like, yeah, it would work that way, but you're not going to have as big of an understanding of like the sanctity of what you're doing. You're just going to be making stinky liquids, and those liquids you can't. They're not for human consumption. A lot of KNF is for human consumption. So KNF magically bridges this gap between agriculture and culinary arts, which is like most agriculture is for culinary, even if you're growing grass for cows, those cows are going to give us dairy or meat eventually. So almost all agriculture has its roots in culinary applications. So to connect that and say, I'm going to make a fertilizer that I can also eat, I'm going to make an inoculant for my plants that also has microbes for me. That's pretty powerful. That's a pretty powerful connection, but it takes practice. It takes time. Yeah, it's very forward thinking, especially to consider that Young Sang or Master Cho created this in like the 80s. So he did this a long time ago and has spent his life teaching it and propelling it out into the forefront, which is how we all know about it today. And Young Sang swooped in right behind him in the next generation and taught a completely different set of things that are not culinary, are very much nasty and smelling bad, and they will grow your farm just as well, but they're as far apart in terms of in terms of like the versatility of them. KNF is much more versatile, and Jadam is like only for plants. But they're very closely related, and it's really interesting to learn the two systems side by side, because it shows you how it's like choose your own adventure. If you want to get into it and go deep and make your food stuff that you can also feed your garden, go for it. But if it's very cool thing to learn, and that's why I teach them side by side, KNF and Jadam, always, because it really does correlate when you learn it together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, why not be able to take from one and take from the other and be able to apply it immediately, instead of saying, I need to have this strict set of guidelines and do it exactly this way. And that's what enables people to just do stuff right away and not be scared. Because I think a lot of people get scared of taking the first step sometimes. You know what I mean? We get so like wrapped up sometimes in our own head. It's going to be so hard, you know?
Yeah. And that's KNF. A lot of people get turned off of KNF by just knowing how many steps there are before you can start mixing your own fertilizer solution. Like, oh, wait, I have to stir the OHN every day for 60 days straight, and I have to ferment the fish for 6 months before I can even start making a fertilizer solution. It turns a lot of people off, and especially established farmers, especially when you go outside of cannabis, people don't even want to hear Korean natural farming. They want to hear natural farming or American natural farming or something.
Yeah.
There's so Jadam has a great onboarding technique of being simple.
Yeah, but we're not really practicing like fermenting fish like they are in other countries and other parts of the world. You know what I mean? Or like, because that stuff was they probably were fermenting fish for 6 months, irregardless of whether they were going to use it for fertilizer or not. You know what I mean? Whether, like for whatever reason.
Well, I think it was culinary. I really think that
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff has its roots in saying, like, I'm going to make sauerkraut, or I'm going to make fish sauce, or I'm going to make some fermented food. And, ooh, this one is just, we didn't like the taste, or the ingredients weren't just right, or something happened. So we're going to put it on the garden, and wow, look what it did for the plants. And, so I really do believe these, like, the more I've studied KNF, I really do believe that, like, culinary arts and agriculture develop side by side and together. And we're kind of reconnecting to that knowledge and that connection right now.
So, Miles, let's talk about Stinky Liquid. So, obviously, one of your companies is fermented plant extracts. So, wondering if maybe you could share a little bit about the role of ferments in natural farming, and also the benefits of just the common home grower and using ferments in their grows.
For sure, good call. Yeah. Shout out fermented plant extracts, my product, and Build a Soil, my distributor for those. They so what these are, and we were just talking about KNF and Korean natural farming and Jadam. And what's interesting about my product is that it technically doesn't fall under each one of those categories. Neither KNF nor Jadam teaches fermented plant extracts the way I make them, or any form of FPE, fermented plant extract. But what they do teach is so similar. It's so like like KNF and Jadam come right here, and my product sits right in the middle, right there, just waiting for them to touch it. And there's just this ever so slight gap between KNF and Jadam where my product sits. And the difference is combining lactobacillus directly with raw plant matter. So in KNF, they never combine lactobacillus with raw plant matter. They add lactobacillus to other fermented plant juices and fruits, but they never ferment plants using labs. And in Jadam, they do lots of putrefaction and fermenting of plants, but they never add lactobacillus or sugar to it. They use soil or compost or rich leaf mold as their inoculant. So in my product, the only inoculant is lactobacillus, which is a decomposing microbe. It's a bacteria that its only job is to eat organic matter, break it down into a more simple form, and kind of excrete out a part of that nutrition. Whatever nutrition they consume, they're excreting, and whatever material that they're consuming from, they're breaking down. So it's an all over, it's called a saprophyte or saprophytic microbe, which just means a decomposer. And sometimes they're referred to as a compost accelerator, because compost is just decomposition, and these things help assist that, move it forward quicker. So that's my product, is basically a water-based lactobacillus decomposition of nutrient-dense plant matter. And this mimics directly what's going on in the soil when you put plant-based nutrient-dense amendments into the soil and then feed microbes to that soil. The microbes go in the soil, they live, they eat that nutrient-dense plant matter, and they excrete out a broken down form of it. So we're basically doing what happens inside of our living soil in a bottle or in a tank and feeding it to the plants that adds both the microbes and the nutrition. So the fermented plant extracts are both an inoculant and a nutritive factor. I focus primarily on the inoculant side of it because the nutrition side is regulated differently when I start talking about my products as a fertilizer. Then I have to do a lot more lab testing and government red tape, jumping through hoops for the FDA and or USDA and state, which at a certain point could become necessary. And I respect companies that want to take it that way. But for me, it's more about this. It's more about what we're doing right now, connecting with y'all, sharing what I do, sharing how to do it. It's more about that than like going to the state or the feds or every state in the country. A lot of people don't understand. You want to sell a fertilizer, you have to get it approved with every single state's Department of Ag in order to sell it in that state. And, some states are more friendly or easier to deal with than others. But
and there's a fee for like every state too. It's not like it's just free to like submit. You got to submit like $150 every state, and that's ridiculous.
Right, and they want lab tests, and it's which I respect all that. We got to do it, and I do it. Sure. I'm working in California right now, which when my labels are approved in California, I hope it's going to be a big deal. But my focus isn't on that side of it, for better or worse. Maybe I should focus a little more on that side of it. But my focus is with the people, with our community, spreading the love, sharing the knowledge. That's where my heart is at, and that's where my head follows. So, but yeah, that's why when you hear me talking about fermented plant extracts, I'm going to generally shy away from the nutritive aspect, even though, as we all know who've used them, they have amazing nutritive qualities.
Sure. Sure. And like once you start getting into that stuff, you're a little bit more aware of how that stuff works out, and then you can kind of like understand for yourself which ones are more nutrient richer than others, and listen to your plant is kind of the overall thing too. You know what I mean? Like you got to listen to the plant and not try and force feed it anything.
Yeah, that's where the microbes come in. Just let the microbes do the work, and preload your soil full of good nutrition.
Yeah,
which is that's the concept of super soil, right? Is just preloading the soil full of good nutrition.
That's right. I mean, thank goodness for those old forums, finding old super soil posts and stuff like that back in the day. Man, like, yeah, that's
bro. Shout out the legends, man. Like, rest in peace,
Farmer John,
TGA. Yeah, rest in peace, Subcool. Fucking that dude was a legend, and he if it wasn't for him, we would not be where we're at with super soils and living soil today. Tom Hill, that old Tom Hill thread about growing giant plants outdoors, like. Yeah, everybody current, shout out everybody spreading the knowledge, because
shout out you, shout out Jeremy, shout out from Thrive, all those old things. And then I met you last year, me and Chris at the Go Cup in St. Charles.
Yeah,
it was so much fun. It was not as hot as it's going to be this weekend. It is going to be way hotter. It's going to be unbearably hot.
Oh, you're talking about temperature. I thought you were like, it's going to be hype this weekend. We're going to have it, but it's going to be hot too. I'm down for whatever.
We're going to have a great time this weekend. We got some like really excited people that are coming out, and they already know about living soil, and they want to know more about living soil. And they want to know more about ferments, and they want to know how to apply it to many different aspects. And that's it's going to be fantastic. I'm excited that there's a community that is so interested in learning it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. That's huge.
I can't shut up about it. So I had to gather some friends and talk about it more.
I love it. Thank you for doing that work, because I'm the same way, where it's like you just leave me alone for too long and I start talking about microbes.
I mean, yeah. Like I'd start pushing ferments on people all the time. Like I can't tell you the amount of people I've met that I'm like, I met a really good friend of mine. I was going there and buying pumpkin ferment, and like that's how I met him, because he had some pumpkin ferment in his hand. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna like this." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then like now he's one of my like closest gromies. You know what I mean? Like that's life, baby.
That's great. I love that.
And the amount of people we've met around here that are into living soil is great too, because if we had to talk to our girlfriends or our wives about living soil any more than we already do, I think we might.
Yeah, it's like nerd out on something else for a moment, but it ain't happening. Yeah, and yeah, it's cool to have something to study, something to follow along that is also cutting, just like with ganja. Like soil science right now is at a really cool time in its evolution with all the like just the technology that we have access to in order to understand these microbes better. That wasn't around 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But somebody asking if Canna Boost is a ferment, I don't know. I can't. They don't. Here's the thing.
They don't
Canna's,
really know.
they're not going to share. They're not open source. They don't carry, and no shame or hate on Canna. But
Think
the bottom,
golf. I like them.
I like Canna. I'm not no shade on any of these companies, except for the fact that like they're not crazy like me. They don't teach how to make their shit. Like, they do have their bottom line much more in focus than I do, for better or worse. Like I said, it's so you're not gonna get that IP, that intellectual property from companies like basically anybody but me or Bill. So, you're not gonna get it from people like so. I can't answer that. I can tell you some things are fermented for sure. Blue Gold, 100% ferments. That is just unrecognized. Yeah, and I think they're leaving a bunch of the plant, like they're fermenting it extra hard and like not ever removing the food supply. They're leaving the food supply because some of them are like slime and like muck comes out of the bottle, and it's like they just left the microbial food supply in the bottle. And the other way I know that they do that is because those bottles explode and leave. And like mine, I'm pretty good. I don't know. I'm like, knock on wood. I keep my explosion rate pretty low on my bottle.
That's what she said. I had to.
Love it.
My room smells like ferments right now. I just brought in some comfrey, some horsetail, and some nettle. And one of them is so bad, there's definitely spillage on it because I can just smell it. It's great.
Yeah. There's a couple things that clean the ferment smell really good. And one of them is just straight labs or like EM1. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other is like a good enzyme cleaner, like the Tweet Mint that Bill DeSoy used to sell. Or I get this stuff called Clean Free with a K, Clean Free Naturally. That's the enzymes cleaners take out the smell pretty good.
Okay.
Even I get it on my hands and like I can't wash it off my hands the same as just any other smell. It's like really unnerving,
How you know when you've met Miles when your hands smell like ferments?
I try hard not to leave the house smelling like this stuff. I really do try not to stink like ferments in public.
No, you're not lying. David Graff once gave me some insect flasks that was overfilled, and I opened it and dropped it all over my new shoes. It was great. Love you, David. He's like, my kid helps me pour bottles sometimes. I love that guy.
Oh, good things. Good Graff. Fire ferments in the house.
Hell yeah. Fire ferments. If you're local, go check it out. Compare it next to fermented plant extracts, the original. That's what I said.
Yeah, side by side them and run them together and use both of them to start. A cool thing that I like to think of is that each ferment is a microbial consortia. Like they have a specific family and like ratio of bacterial species in there. When you combine those and give them a new food supply and a new environment, which is like your tank brewing wherever you've set it up, you're basically like starting a new colony and combining like if you used my product and David Graff's product and EM1, you're like combining all these three different consortia of microbial populations together in yours and making it so that you can like you're getting a different population starter. Mm-hmm. And knows where it's going to go from there. What kind of microbes you're going to culture?
Hey, you can get a pack of seeds for like $35 on fermentedplantextracts.com, and that's some local Western Colorado farm seeds. And you can
you got a whole bunch of seeds.
Yeah, you can bring that whole set over to you, and you can get it on fermentedplantextracts.com. I was on the site today. I just remembered.
I'd forgotten about what I called it, the farm seed collection also. Yes. And you get a pack of ganja seeds, you get like carrots, poppies.
Should taste good beans.
That was not free. Not free. You paid $35.
I mean, no, but like that's what you get with it. Like that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
most people didn't catch on. I didn't promote that properly and be like, this is the back door to get my genetics. But the difference is you don't get to pick. Like I'm throwing whatever pack of my ganja in there that I want. But
I mean,
yeah. What else? There's
I didn't know about this. I'm gonna have to grab one.
Yeah.
Farms. I just bought the ticket for the Living Soil Cup on November 1st and 2nd, and I've got an entry. And I received my tickets this morning by email, which is great because I already booked a hotel and the plane trip with Chris.
Yes.
Hopefully, I don't have to stand at the fence.
So tell me about your entry. You pay on your blue skies or glue skies?
Yes.
What? Tell me about that. Where'd that come from?
Yeah. So these guys have all heard the origin story. I was part of the Builder Soil Patreon, still am. And last year, or a little over a year ago, Kid Kaya did a little promo with him where he gave out 3 seeds. You could choose from either Lone Wolf or Paeonia Blue Sky. I chose Paeonia Blue Sky. It was 3 seeds. You grew them all out. They turned out to be male, all of them. So I picked the best male of the bunch. And it just happened to correlate with the time that Jeremy had just posted on the YouTube series of the all-kid pollen harvesting. Kind of gave me the confidence to grow it out and just see where it goes. Harvested the pollen, and I had 3 awesome female cultivars. And that one in particular, the Paeonia Blue Skies, there's just something that I can't describe. It just works. It's just like a really compatible cultivar. It's crossed with Nano Glue from Square One Genetics. And I had grown out probably 10 seeds of each of my 3 strains that I made, and one in a living soil bed. That one turned out to be pretty exceptional. It kind of checks all the boxes in terms of build structure, vigor, yield, really dense nugs. It's very photogenic. It has great terps. It tested at 26% THC. It's a very well-rounded plant. It's not just about the end flower. And I'm pretty confident that if I grow it out again in the living soil bed and do it justice, that it'll garner some attention because it's a gas with a lemon behind it, and it's a dark green with purples, and it's just a really beautiful flower.
I'm stoked.
I just trimmed her, and she's huge. Like the nugs are just fat. You killed it, man.
I appreciate it.
I can't wait to smoke it.
I got really lucky on that one. Let's just put it that way.
Ooh, that's exciting because that's kind of where I'm at. Is Paeonia. I'm like right down the road from Paeonia. And most people don't know that town at all. Like even Colorado people don't know Paeonia because it's a little secret. Yeah. We're gonna for the cup this year, we're gonna do something out here in Paeonia. Something, one of the like evenings in between or something. I'm gonna get people out here to Paeonia to see the vibes out here because it's a unique like regenerative agricultural community. We have the largest concentration of organic farms in the state of Colorado. We have some of the original, oldest, like predating the organic program, like some of the first ever grandfathered in organic farms in the state. There's a Colorado State University research station out here that's certified organic, the only one in the whole state. This is, it's where it should be happening. We should be gathering people of like mindset, and it's a ganja growing capital. I mean, they've been growing weed out here since the 60s on big scale, like fields and shit. No joke.
Yep.
And only legalization could have ended that.
Thanks.
I'm super excited about that aspect of it. I was really hoping that I would have the opportunity to go out to Paeonia because I've been following Kid Kaya for a couple of years now. The stuff that he posts of his farm, I've mentioned on the podcast here before, is just like, it's so scenic. It's so gorgeous. It's like the life I want to live, with all the animals running around and they're all interacting with one another. And it's just so serene. And man, just it's a vibe, man.
Yeah, I'm stoked to share this area with people beyond just Montrose and Grand Junction, which is where the event was last year. But because Paeonia is kind of right in the middle. It's
Right.
a little offshoot. It's a little bit out of the way up in the holler, but I last year I did the best I could just to get people out here and do the event and make it happen like on my own, really independently. But this year I'm going to tap in harder with our community so that we can all share that with y'all together, because it's a special area for sure, and it's very secretive and well known or well hidden at this point. And as it becomes discovered, I feel like our people, the ganja people, should be some of the first to tap in on it. And so we're going to bring you right up here to the spot and show you the goats and the orchards and the fruit and everything. Yeah, it's awesome.
When Chris was like, I'll split a car with you, but I just want you to know that we're going to Pingwon, and you have to go with me. And I was
right.
Like, okay.
Right. You might end up, I don't know, like you might end up canceling the hotel wherever that is for Saturday or for all of it, because like Friday night, like Hot Springs vibes, campers stay there. Saturday up in Paonia vibes, and then Sunday back in Junction. That's I'm going to put out like a little rough thing, but you heard it here first on the Growers Hangout.
You heard it here. The real party. The real party.
The what's not on the ticket, like all the stuff that's going to happen around the ticket. Like the ticket gets you in the event, but what about not the event? Everything else.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I can't wait.
We're gonna have great times this weekend too. Yeah, camping.
Yes,
How cold is it gonna be on the western slope of Colorado in November?
It's gonna be nippy. It's not gonna be like the winter, but it's gonna be cold nights, and it just depends. There could be snow on the ground.
So I should bring long johns for sure.
Yeah, one pair, like just something warm, something like but it's also going to be just like watching the weather the week before and like 2 weeks before. And I'll be posting about it too. Like last year we did October 20th and that was perfect. But a lot of people, I don't know. I pushed it back this year. We'll see. We'll see if we regret it, if it's cold. But
that reminds me, I was talking to my local favorite breeder, Go Genetics, and he wanted to know, do you guys have an outdoor submission, or is like your submission just outdoor, indoor?
Yep. Okay. And I think an outdoor won third place last year. So like everything is competitive, I think. I'm an outdoor flower from the homie Gus, grown in the Grand Valley right down here, won third place.
Oh,
so that was nice.
Nice.
One local boy place in Saptree up in the house.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Well, I wanted to go last year, but I didn't have anybody to go with. And I was like, I don't want to show up alone. I'm weird enough. You know what I mean?
Pull up. But yeah, it was also kind of quick last year. It was like just about 60 days when I decided to do it and make it happen. So, but that's why I was like, this year we'll go the other way.
And it's for the farmers too, because it's after outdoor season. You should have everything harvested by,
really proper fresh outdoor that's going to be like fire is going to compete really well next to indoor. And it's just like, I don't know, I was thinking about doing a regular concentrate and a rosin or an old school hash and a rosin and BHO or something. Like I was just like, flower and concentrate, keep it easy. I'm not, it's not really about the competition to me and the cups and all that. It's about getting people together, so.
Dude, I'm excited to come to that little yellow building and just be like, yo, what's up? It's Mecca. You know what I mean? For Living Soil on YouTube, this is Mecca.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that.
Good people, good vibes. It's like a real community, and like if you listen to me long enough, I'm always talking about community and community vibes, because I think community is everything when you come down to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the lesson I've been learning too, is coming into just like doing things myself and being that fiercely independent like person, but not letting that limit what I'm doing either, and saying, okay, the community has to be involved in this. We have I was just on the phone with Gwen earlier talking about like doing some kind of farm meal where she's going to grow veggies for, we're trying to decide Friday evening, or maybe like an add-on thing where it's like buy a meal ticket, you get this, go to the farm dinner, maybe in the greenhouse or something. And she's growing specific crops just for it. She's already got stuff in the ground, and we're talking to somebody to roast a bunch of meat or grill a bunch of meat, whatever you're doing. Yeah. So yeah, just tapping in more to that local community, bringing everybody together, and involving not as many people as possible, but really tapping in, really getting people involved.
There's a cool bunch of like Illinois farmers who are like farm to table, and they do hash pairings too. And shout out to them. I got invited to one of those. I just haven't been able to make it yet. I want to go. Seems awesome.
Yeah, I've been trying to put something kind of similar together out there. It's been everything remote is so big, and I love to see every time I'm like, ooh, this is it. Like, here's an idea no one's doing. Like 6 months later, like I think I got sponsored Instagram ads for hash paired dinners, and I'm like, that is so, like, finally we were normalizing.
Yeah.
Like, we're fucking normal. Like, it's like, so
we have a pizza and hash pairing coming up in Chicago.
That's a no-brainer, and nobody's done it.
With Professor Pizza, like, shit.
Game. Like, I'm so
Hell yeah. You got something in July too, don't you?
New York City.
Yeah, New York.
Yep. That is we're doing like a little hash. It's gonna be like a little education kind of thing in the morning, talking about growing for hash and harvesting for hash. Maybe a little bit about washing. I think Peli Pilar is gonna be there. And then and Portal, of course, Portal Provisions, my little partner in crime there. Best one, my favorite hash maker. And then we got Miners Melts and Unknown Hasher, formerly Tapatio Melts, I think. And we got a whole crew showing up for that. A couple artists, some DJs in the evening, I think, for the New York City.
About to blow up. Their homegrown rules are crazy. They've won the game. They have true social equity. They have true homegrown rules.
But they haven't put anything into place yet. So it's like, it looks good now because it's all gray market. But let's see how the state tries to put it. It's like, all those rules look good on paper, but yeah, I agree with you, because we're in like the gray market era of New York City right now, which is like,
they have reasonable rules for growing outside. You have to like grow, like have a fence or grow companion plants. They talk about like reasonable things to do to prevent powdery mildew and smell. It's crazy. You can have 6 plants, and they just released another 155 licenses. I'll tell you, this weekend, Illinois, it is so crazy.
Locked. Illinois is locked down. Yeah. Well, New York waited like a couple years, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years before they like started handing out licenses and let everything roll. Now they're handing out licenses and not really regulating them yet. So yeah, it's going to be.
And they have the farmers market rules already in place. You can go to a farmers market and sell your own wares. You just have to be connected to a dispensary.
Bro, when I was there a year ago, you could walk into Washington Square Park and set up a table. You literally had to have a table, because like you can't shit on a bench.
Loud. Yeah, like you could do that 20 years ago to Washington Square Park. You just walk through and loud.
Yep. But it's actually a thing now where people will be setting up with like a bunch of T-shirts and a bunch of this, and then they got their weed over on one side. And it's like, oh, there's jars too.
Yeah, they tried that here, but it's against our CSA. You can't give away any T-shirts or stickers. It's prohibited. Right. It's crazy. I mean, not that they check.
Right. I'm saying that like there's just a different mentality. Like Chicago is just a different scene than New York. Yeah. And y'all put it together more to favor the licensees, and the home growers get like a little something. What do you got? How many plants?
5 plants under 5 inches, or over 5 inches. You get 5 plants.
But you can have as many clothes as you want
if they're under 5 inches.
It's hemp though.
The bud sickles. Grow bud sickles.
It's legal THCA hemp. But they're trying to kill that too. So we'll see.
Yeah. So yeah. Wow. Illinois doesn't have a state hemp program. Y'all have the.
Oh, we do.
Your state program wrote THCA in though.
Well, yeah, but now as of January 2021, it was the USDA changed their testing rules to include decarboxylation, and because the Illinois State Hemp Program has to follow USDA testing, it is now,
Interesting. Like I said, it's an exciting time to be around in Forgotten. So much is fluid and changing and different depending on which line you are, which before it didn't matter. It was like, can't have that nowhere.
I mean, before it used to we used to walk around our town and we would find it growing in a field and harvest it and smoke it. And it worked. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real deal. Like,
your feral stuff was psychoactive?
Yeah, dude, you could smoke it. Growing like wild. My grandpa was like, it used to grow across the street from me in a field.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. It's of the earth. It's one of the true teachers of the earth. One of the great teachers,
Truly.
You have to respect it as that.
For real. No, I give thanks to the plant, for real. Well said.
Miles, I want to ask you a follow-up question on ferments, just because, again, knowing the audience, there's going to be people that have never tried ferments before, but have heard of all the benefits. The big one being improved flavor. I don't know if it's been scientifically proven yet, but what do we believe what's happening at a biological level when we feed our plant ferments that extracts those better terpenes?
Sure. So I think we can talk about plant secondary metabolites, which are these terpenes and THC, like these things that the plant are creating to protect itself and to protect the seed, and its ultimate expression. The plant is going to express this biologically through different functions that we can track now through science, and there's studies saying that these secondary metabolites stop being created. They're not being created at the same rate, or the plant doesn't create them the same way when the plant is being fed already chelated nutrition. When biological functions, when nutrients are being provided to the plant through bacterial interactions, fungal interactions through the soil, the plant actually creates more and better secondary metabolites, such as terpenes, which is flavor, right? So, and this is something I'll go back to all the time, and I'll point at rhizophagy, which is a bacterial process in the soil where bacteria actually enter into the roots and they kind of live inside of the plant roots for a minute, and there's an exchange and interaction, and then they leave and they go back out into the soil, and they kind of cycle and do that through their life over and over. And this one of the big studies about this, or some of the studies about it, have said that when plants are fed chelated nutrients, salts, for example, or anything that's not biological right there, these pre-chelated nutrients can shut down rhizophagy. The rhizophagy slows down, and that process isn't happening as much. So this is something I could always point to, that's saying the ferments are supporting these biological functions in the soil. Living soil and the breakdown of organic matter in the soil is really what's going to drive processes like rhizophagy that we understand to produce secondary metabolites. I don't know. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yes, this is fascinating to me. And it all ties back to weed should taste good, right? It's all the big loop. And if Aaron, if it's okay for a second, I'd like to talk about the Living Soil Box and our partnership. For those, obviously everybody's heard who's watching, because again, all the homies listening. We got the Living Soil Box that we partnered on, and you have the opportunity to grow some of Miles' genetics. Weed should taste good. There are 2 strains, 2 cultivars that are made available, and I was hoping you could maybe talk about the Mesa F3 and the Cherries and Cheese F2 and what people can expect with those.
For sure. The Mesa F3, it's the 3rd generation of that Mesa Cookies original thing I made that in 2016, I think. So Mesa F3 is going to be longer flowering than any of the previous generations. It can go 11, 12 weeks. It gets lanky and makes spear-shaped buds. Sometimes it has more hybrid traits than any of the previous generations. They're going to be primarily like I like to say a dark fruit kind of realm, like a dark berries. Not going to be getting like as much like pineapple and peach and that kind of stuff, but more like berries and blueberry and like a richness. There's also cushy elements in the flavor, so you're going to get this dichotomy between like fruit and funk, gas and like kind of candy type of things. It's going to need support and trellising, whereas a lot of the previous generation F1 and F2s did not. So it has some really great purple expressions, but they're going to be less dominant. I'd say 1 and 4. The green expressions that finish green primarily are dominant. It does have some like pretty kind of hues in the end, but I wouldn't call them purple. Whereas in previous generations that was available. You'd in the F2s especially, you'd see more purple expressions. The cherries and cheese, shorter, stockier, faster finishing, generally 8 to 10 weeks tops. More similar to the F1, but again, more leaning into the hybrid realm, whereas the F1s were very, very indica, very short, stocky. These F2s will have more variation. And again, a similar, because the lime cookies, or the Mesa cookies and the cherries and cheese have shared parentage. They're kind of cousins, I would say. Not directly, not like kissing cousins, but like the South, that's a thing. But the cherries and cheese is going to be a little bit more on the funky side, not as much of the creamy elements that you'll get in the Mesa, but more of like these sharp, astringent fruit and sour cheeses. Still leaning on the Kush, but not like so much OG Kush, but as like I would compare it kind of like to the sweeter Burmese, if anybody's grown the old Burmese, and some of the Afghans. So Afghan style Kush, not an OG style Kush flavor on the cherries and cheese. Similar on the Mesa. There's not a whole lot of OG type of things going on in Mesa. The cushiness is more of a rich like Afghan type of thing from that Long Valley Royal Kush or the Royal Kush line, Mandelbrot, that came through Rootwise, the Elk Valley heirlooms that made all those crosses.
Chris is so excited about the cherries and cheese that his phone is going sideways. But you're right, Chris. I am excited about the cherries and cheese. He was like, "Oh, dude, you can't wait to see what Miles sent. It's going to be great."
Yeah, and what I'm bringing too is exciting. I'm bringing some of the first commercially available femmes made from my genetics, the F2 Mesa F2 selected cut, the 2.0 femmed, like S1 onto itself, and that femmed onto the Cap Junkie I'm bringing. So I'll have femmed with me, and I'll have some other stuff on me for sure. But yeah, the box, that's what the boxes are going to have in them.
I know.
That's so cool to be all those other Build-A-Soil breeders is really like, we've been waiting I'm like, how the fuck did we not do this? Like, this is so cool that you got to it and like made this happen, Chris. Cause that's like it's been meaning to happen for the breeders of the Build-A-Soil crew for quite some time, something like this.
I mean, we've been talking about, like, since Chris and I met you last year, I was like, I'm going to bring him out for an educational thing. And he's like, I'm going to do a Build-A-Soil box. And we're both here and we're both doing it and we're doing it together, and it's the fucking shit, dude. Like, I'm super excited. Like, it's what it's all about. Like, it feels like everything's culminating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like how often and regular and consistently can we do that? Can we be like, I'm going to do this thing? And like a year later, you're like,
yep.
Guess what? We're doing the 50%. Like, day later or an hour later. Like, how often and consist like manifest that shit? Right?
Well,
Dude, I know.
one thing I tell people all the time, like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And when we met last year, and I had my my first iteration of the box, my launch box, with Robin Hood, and I had the pack of Clearwater in there, and you're like, "Yo, this is like the bespoke box of cannabis." I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." And
I remember that fucking moment where I was like,
yeah,
"This is
and
what you're doing."
yeah, and I told you I wanted to get your genetics in a future box, and I was honestly just like waiting for the right opportunity to do it, and like this just culminated in the perfect storm, and like had I don't know, that I felt the timing was right, and we got all the best in there, and yeah,
Yeah, you
it's
got
just
all
an
of
awesome
us
box.
stoked on it. You got everybody you want involved in it stoked in a really perfect way. Where like when it was like I walked into Jeremy's office one day and there was the box, and I was like, "Oh, I know." Like Chris sent you. He's like, "Yeah," and he said he wants you to, and I was just like, "Homie is doing it. Like he's getting after it." So yeah, that was. This has been awesome to see happen, and yeah, July 1st, shipping them out like right around the corner, man. Like
Yes, sir.
it's so cool.
I
I'm
know.
excited. I can't wait
Yeah,
to try it.
we're gonna definitely be talking more about that at the event. I would imagine showing off some of the packs, maybe even having some, who knows, maybe some flour from some of those packs showing up. I don't know.
Hey,
Maybe some
I'll be bringing the
stashes, I
PGS.
think.
What's that? Head stashes?
Pete.
I'm going to be bringing the Paonia Blue Skies from my most recent harvest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
Pete, have you tried it yet? Little taste
No,
test.
I
Okay.
haven't. I just finished trimming it last night, and yeah, I don't want to mess it up. I want to give it the right little, as much time as possible until Saturday. Literally, I'll probably be tasting it with all of you.
That's gonna
It's
be
awesome,
great.
dude.
Sweet.
That's gonna be great, dude. Yeah, super excited, man.
Yeah, the nugs on them are fucking huge. The Trump cherry is the same thing. They're huge. I'll bring it all.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be, you know how it is.
Yeah, and if Marky's watching, I'll bring the cake too.
That's what's up.
Hey.
Chris, what do you got? I know you got some.
What do I got? Man, I just I'm looking forward to this weekend. Like, just when you speak, when Jeremy speaks, it's the confidence, your knowledge, it's inspiring. And like I like get on the edge of my seat when you talk, man. It's like because you put in the time, and you're doing it for all the right reasons, and it resonates with me, and I know it resonates with others that are listening. And man, I just really appreciate that, and I appreciate your passion and your willingness to share the knowledge and to help as many people as possible. It's kind of what I built crop culture on. It's very much aligned with that. So just yeah, really appreciate all that you're doing and all the knowledge that you're dropping. It's awesome.
Thank you. That means the world. Thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, like as you're saying it, I'm thinking like, yeah, we should all like read books together or something, like, because it's like really just like about, it's really just about exposing yourself to new concepts and ideas and saying like which resonates deepest with you, and what can you like expand on and speak on, and share your perspective on those ideas. And like what have you had practice in, like, because all these practices we're doing, all this growing and farming and like the nuances of our crop and how that relates to other people's crops and how they grow them and how they perceive the quality of them. This is what we're going to be like doing with cannabis is the same thing that an asparagus grower does to make sure his crop gets to the shelf or through the distribution chain in a proper fashion, and quality shows in the end.
Boys, I don't know if you know, but we're gonna have so much fun this weekend. And if you don't have your tickets yet, give us a follow on Instagram. There's a QR code. Uh, Hit us up. Tickets are super low cost. They come with a free pack of crop culture originals, and you get VIP entrance to the Little Bean barbecue event the next day in Carroll Stream, Illinois. and like that's where the party's gonna happen.
That's the
And
part.
you should come by, hang out, show us that your weed does taste good because we're gonna be there. Miles is gonna be right up front, right next to Lil Bean, right next to Goat Genetics, you know, right at the dab bar. So it's gonna be
The dab.
Oh yeah.
bro.
There's always.
All right.
Yeah. Free dab bar, baby. Live hash rosin, diamonds. Let's go.
I hope to God I can go.
Please pull up.
Yeah, pull up. Pull up.
I just
It's gonna
gotta
be the
sneak
spot.
in for a little bit.
But yeah, hit us up. We want to be respectful of your time, and we don't want to waste it. So we like to keep our pods to about an hour, and we don't want to overdo it because everybody's got stuff to do, and we're gonna hang out so much this weekend. You're gonna get sick of us. So
I doubt that. I'm stoked on it. So yeah, I hope to see everybody out there in Chicago this weekend. Whoever can pull up and meet up. And yeah, thank you for this time. This has been great. I love the vibes and to hear what you guys got going on and to kind of this nice little reflection on since we met last year.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm stoked for the heat. I'm ready for it.
I mean, Chicago's been waiting for it, so it's here, and it's going to be in your face. That's all I can say.
Sweet. I love it.
Miles, I just want to thank you. I appreciate it. Today was actually just like me listening. So I really appreciate having you on, and I look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, man. Give thanks for the work y'all doing.
Absolutely. Remember,
It should taste good.
it tastes good, people.
Hey, see who we're going to grow with next, okay?
Love it. Peace.
Yo, ding dong, we're done here. Time to go.